Right, cracking. So morning, everyone, and thanks for joining. So I'm Lee Senior, and I'm Head of Customer Success here at Force24, and welcome to our first how-to webinar. So these webinars are specifically designed for you to get the very best out of the Force24 platform. And this week, we want to specifically look at lead scoring. And lead scoring, it's really one of our most powerful features in the platform, and we use it day in and day out with massive success. And what we want to do today is share some of our secrets and how we actually achieve that. So specifically, what we're going to cover is what is a lead score, first of all, how do they actually work, how do we automate the lead escalation process, the differences between what a high value URL is and a goal URL and how to use them, how to view the person's activity data, and then the journey manager section as well, in terms of how to segment that data as well. Once we've shown you how to implement this today, I need you all then to go away and have a think about how you're actually going to implement this within your marketing, because what we want to do is make sure, like I say, getting the best at the platform, and we want to hear your success stories within the next couple of weeks. So please go away, think about it, and update us on your progress, because we would love to hear about it and perhaps even discuss it on a future webinar. We also want to encourage as much discussion as possible. So I'm sure many of you already joined a Zoom webinar before. You'll see the Q&A function at the bottom. Ask as many questions along the way. What we're going to do then is, once Emma's gone through the lead scoring section of the platform, we'll then cover off a few questions, or as many as we can, in the last 5 minutes. If we don't talk about them all, we'll try and reach out to you afterwards, but we'll try and cover off as much as possible. Do remember as well afterwards, so don't worry about asking the questions now. If afterwards you think, damn it, I forgot to ask that, remember, you've got Intercom. Intercom is our live chat feature, and we'll be back to you within 2 minutes to help you, any advice on the platform. And don't also forget that you've got a dedicated consultant. So if you want that more one-to-one advice, perhaps you want to talk a little bit more at a strategic level about your business, and have a conversation directly with a consultant, we can also book that in. So please do reach out afterwards should you want to. And so yeah, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Emma.
Morning, everybody. I'm Emma Dixon, and I'm the product specialist team lead here at Force24. As you're all aware, with the Force24, it's free training for life. So if at any point after this session, you feel like you need additional training sessions with myself and the team, do just drop us a note, either email me directly at emma.dixon@force24.co.uk, or you can use a chat function within the platform and someone will be able to liaise and sort that out and get something booked in the diary. Even if it's a refresh session or it's a particular area of the platform, feel free to just call for that assistance. So without further ado, let me just share my screen and we'll talk through the lead scoring within the platform. So let me just share the screen. Hopefully everybody can see that. Some people will be quite familiar with the lead score, and it may be that you do use it, and it might be just a bit of a refresh on how we utilize that within the system. But if to start off with, we want to look at what is a lead score. And essentially a lead score is us assigning a value for an action. So if we go into the settings within the Force24 system, let me just refresh that a second.
This is worth mentioning, actually. One of the new features we've just released, I say new feature, it's a new update. The settings section you'll now see is automatically condensed just to make it easier to navigate through.
Yes, especially as if you have a lot of high value URLs, the list can go on quite some down the platform there. So it's a lot easier to look at the lead scoring by hitting the drop down menu. So with the lead scoring, we assign a value for an action. So if we look here in the settings, you've got that section here. So we can look at what does an email click action look like. So we give 1 point for that action. What does an open look like? Well, in the Force24 platform, we don't actually want to class an action for an open. We're just concerned about a click, but it might be that you want to append a value for that. We've also got web page hit and repeat web visits. So these actions are important, but what we can look at is with a high value web page and a hit goal URL, what does that mean? With these two, you're actually in control of what we specify that value for. So if we look at email open, click, web visit and web page hit, these are standard within the Force24 system. But here with a goal URL and a high value URL, we are able to change that value and specify what that action is. So for example, what is a high value web page? What would you class as a high value web page? Depending on what your business is, it could be that you consider a certain product page as a high value page. It could be a contact us page, for example. In terms of a goal URL, what is that action that you want that contact to achieve? And in different businesses, that can be different things. So it could be a purchase of a product. It could be download a brochure, request a demo, register for a certain event, whatever it is in terms of your website. This is where you would specify that value. And as you can see within the platform, and this is throughout the system, you've got that editing function. So we can actually change that value. So normally when we set you up on the platform, you get sort of the out of the box, what we consider good values to have for them actions. But if you feel within your business that you want a high value web page to be more than 15, then we can simply click the edit button and change that value. From there on in, moving forwards, that contact would be assigned that value for that action. So once you've set the values for the actions, we need to set the high value web page and the goal URL. So these are the two that you are in control of. So if we just scroll a little bit further up, we can see we've got my high value URLs and my goal URLs. So if I just click on the goal one and click on the drop down, what we can do is click on the plus icon and just simply add the URL in there. So click the plus icon. Oops. This has got a bit slow. If you click the plus icon and just simply add in the URL, as you can see with the ones here below, you'll be able to add that in, and from there on in, it will then be tracking that information. If we just scroll further, I'll just do the collapse rather than scroll, a lot easier. If we go to the high value, it's the same principle, just add as many URLs as you want in there. There's no limit. So if you consider just one goal URL as your goal, that's fine. Or you might want to have multiple goal URLs to track that activity. So that covers off how you can control it in terms of the settings. So what does that look like in terms of a contact? So let's have a look at a contact and see what that might be. So let's look at a contact with activity. So if we're in the contact search, we can scroll down and look at, if we go a little bit further, lead score. Lead score, let's say, is greater than 50. But obviously from a GDPR point of view, I'm not going to show Force24 data. So I'm just going to add an additional rule. Obviously, you wouldn't need to do this, but I'm just going to show you my details in there. So if we just go to email address, contains Emma Dixon at Force24. Okay, and we filter that. You obviously, if you've selected greater than 50, you might see what that value looks like. So hopefully you can see you have contacts that meet that criteria of greater than 50. So if we look at that particular contact, so let's look at myself as a contact. We can see I've actually generated a lead score of 322. And what you will find is perhaps internal contacts will have high lead score because obviously they're opening, clicking emails a lot, the cookie's being dropped, and they're on the website, so they'll be generating a high value. So I'll come on to how we can exclude internal contacts out of certain journeys to make sure that we're only looking at our contacts in our database. So what we can see here is the way I've generated my lead score. So this is the details page on me. So we've got all the details of what we hold against me, what marketing lists I might exist in. But if we just go on to the activity, so this is the interesting bit. So we can see what my engagement looks like. But actually, let's have a look at how I've generated my lead score. So we can see here that I've opened this email 5 times. And then at the bottom, and you've got the opens and clicks in there, but at the bottom, we've also got the web activity code. So we can see I'm generating points from my activity. So we can see that this is a direct visit. Hence, I've got the 5 points that we saw that was on the settings tab on the settings page. There we go. So that is the same across any contact, internal or part of your database. You will get that information there. Okay, so what do we want to do next? So we know that we've collecting the lead scores against the contacts, but what we need to make sure is we essentially make this easy for you to be able to collect them contacts. And then also from there on in, we can decide what we want to do. So the best way of doing that is setting it up through Journey Manager. So if we just click on Journey Manager, what we want to do is start a new journey. As some of you may be familiar with the Journey Manager. So in this instance, I'm just going to call this lead score 50 plus. So with the enrolment settings on here, we can keep it at the same ones the first time they meet the start audience criteria. I'm not going to go into too much detail about the second setting. Obviously, if we need further, if you do require some additional Journey Manager training, then do let us know. We can go into much more detail on this. Then I'm going to hit save. So as per every journey, we always need a start audience criteria and we always need an end journey. So for this lead scoring, so what I'm wanting to do is I want to collect these people that are worth collecting. So it's qualifying the leads, because essentially, as much as opens and clicks are important and they are vital to your marketing communications, essentially it's a vanity metric, because you know, I've opened an email and I've clicked an email, but actually building up that behavior of me on going to your website and repeatedly going to your website, and I'm also going onto your high value URLs and your goal URLs, is giving a much more intense picture of my behavior, rather than, okay, I'm engaged because I've opened an email. Well, I might have just opened it just because I was intrigued, but I'm not actually engaging with you as a brand. Whereas the lead scoring is painting that bigger picture. So that's why it becomes much more powerful in terms of being able to collect that data. And what the Force24 platform is going to do is it's going to do that work for you. It's going to do the legwork for you. So in this instance, if we are wanting to collect the lead scoring, we need to start with our start audience. So we drag that in. Then if we click on the drop down, and then let's go to lead score. So in this point, I'm setting this as 50. Within your business, we need to determine what your tipping point is. Everyone's business will have a different tipping point. Some people might have a lead score of a lot higher. So it could be, let's say 150, because your website is much more of a browsing website where they're actually picking up more activity. So what we need to determine is qualify them leads. So when you first set it up, it might be a little bit of altering that value. So at this point, I'm going to use 50, but it potentially in your business, maybe 20 is your tipping point, or perhaps it, as I say, it could be 150 is the tipping point. But for this example, let's use 50. So I'm going to say greater or equal to 50 points. There we go. So as we set that there, obviously this number gives us the number in the database, but how many people meet that criteria? So let's click on the two arrows there. And this little button is really quite useful in determine what it looks like. So we can see 243 contacts have a lead score of greater than 50. But what we want to do with this journey is we actually maybe want to exclude anybody with an internal email address. So let's add an additional rule. So let's say email address doesn't contain force24.co.uk. So there we go. That's me excluding my internal colleagues out of this criteria. So what does that look like? So we would expect the number to come down there. So now it's 209. Now, in terms of your business, it might be that you want to specify further exclusions on further criteria. So it could be lead score is greater than 50, not an internal contact, and also not a customer. And we can determine that by potentially you might have your customers in a marketing list. So we could add an additional rule, not in customer database, for example. So we're only looking at prospects. Obviously, it could be something different within your database. So it could be a flag in your database against that field that highlights that they're a customer, or further criteria. Obviously, I'm keeping that quite simple, but within your business, you might have more criteria that you want to exclude, because what we want to do is make sure this journey does the work for us. So we're not looking at leads that we don't need to. So let's just leave it at that for the time being. So lead score is greater or equal to 50 and email address doesn't contain an internal email. So let's hit save there. And it's really straightforward. All we're wanting to do is drag in the action component, and the action component is add or remove from a marketing list. So let's add to a marketing list. So if you haven't got one created, we could create one straight away here. And if it isn't created, it tends to go orange. So let's do lead score 50 plus webinar. I'd already created one. So what I'm going to do is add that lead score 50 plus to that list. And I'm just going to change it at the top here so I know visually when I'm looking at the Journey Manager what that component is doing. So add to lead score. Okay, and then we're going to hit save. And then really simply end the journey. Then on the right hand side here, we can see we've got the validation errors, and hopefully as we join this up, then validation errors are going to get less and less until we get the journey is valid. So we could set that journey going, and all that's actually doing is segmenting our data. We're not doing anything with the data, we're just collecting that information. But what's really useful is let's do another journey to make sure we're looking at that list and removing them out. So if I just go back into Journey Manager again, and we want to create another journey, but this time we're going to call it lead score 50 plus, and we're going to call it the removal journey, and we'll hit save. Now you can build it into one journey, but what I find in terms of building these data segmentation ones is having one journey that's looking for that criteria and having another journey that's looking for that criteria in that list that's not being met anymore. And it just makes the journey much more efficient. So if we start with our start audience again, so in this instance now, because we're wanting to remove the contacts out of that lead scoring journey, we're actually looking at the marketing list that we've just created. So if we go down to marketing list, we're now going to look at the lead score list that we just created, the lead score 50 plus webinar. So we're only looking at that list now. So at the minute it's going to say 0 because we've not hit go on that journey. But let's add another rule in. So what we're going to do is in this start audience criteria is we're actually going to look for that lead score criteria not being met. So if we just scroll down to lead score and we go to lead score is less than 50. So we know that everybody in that list would have at one point had 50 in their lead score. And the way the lead scoring works, where I had 322 as a lead score, because I've been opening emails, engaging with the website, if I stopped today and not engaged with the emails, not engaged with the website and made no engagement whatsoever, after 30 days, my lead score will have deteriorated to 0. So it's a rolling lead score, which is really good. So it's not us just collecting a lead score cumulatively. What we're actually going to do is look at what does our prospects, what does our hot prospects look like right now? And by us doing it within this in the journey, it gives us that option to do that. So once if we did collect them because they did have a 50 lead score, we want to remove them after 30 days or whatever it is that their lead score has dropped after, we're going to take them out of that list. So let's hit save there. So what we would do now is we would remove them from the lead score. Now, potentially you might want to do something else with this, this contact. You might want to highlight to somebody, wait a minute, we've got this lead score with this 50 plus lead score and now it's dropped. Do we need to make contact? Do we need to send further communication? Do we need to nurture them? Do we need to send them to specific communication? So all of these things could be something we want to do to try and get their lead score back up again. But just to keep it simple, I'll just say we're going to remove them from that marketing list. So let's remove. So same as before, we're just removing from the lead score. Move from the 50 plus, and then we find the lead score list that we were looking at. So we're looking at the lead score 50 plus webinar, hit save. And then just like before, we end the journey. And then what we'll do is join that up like so. There we go. Now that journey is valid. So if I just go back to the Journey Manager just for a second, what we can see is if we had both of these journeys running, this journey would be collecting them. This journey is now looking at that list and removing them when they don't meet that criteria. And this just can be automated and is running all the time. So what is the benefit of us doing that? So once we've got that list, what do we want to do with that lead? So if we just go into your data, actually I'll just click it up here. So we've got a lead score 30 plus list in the Force24 platform. So what this would look like, so if you imagine that you've collected your lead score, obviously me looking at that lead score that we've just created, we wouldn't have anything. So I'm just using this as an example. So what we would like to see is an upward trend in your lead score marketing list. So we'd hopefully see that trend going upwards. But because we've got the removal, we might get a little bit of fluctuation because we're removing people out when they don't meet that criteria. But what that's good from a business point of view is we can say, okay, we had 100 contacts with a lead score of 50 plus for the month of April. Well, what did we have for the month of May? Well, actually, because we've been monitoring that lead score and been monitoring that list, actually for the month of May, we've managed to increase that to 125, because what we're doing is we're sending out the communications, we're pushing people to the website in a relevant fashion, that by looking at that list, we can look at that. So we can see as well on this list, so we're just to go over that, we're actually in the Your Data section and we're looking at the lead score list here. And we can see what that average lead score looks like for that list. So for our hot prospects, we'll call them, and what the total lead score is. So what we'd like to see is this increase as well as this. So it's a good reporting tool rather than actually we got a 28% open rate for the month of April on this campaign versus a 26% the month before. Actually, this is much more powerful because we're actually building our prospect data up. So I would definitely recommend that would be something to maybe look at, and it makes you understand that actually once we send communication out, we're actually getting a spike in our lead score, we're getting a spike in our web activity, and we're getting a spike into the marketing list because of the journey that we've got running. Okay, so what might we do with this list now? So if we're collecting this list, so if I just go back to the journey manager for a second, if we look at the lead score list that we have created here, with this list, what do we want to do with that list? Now, depending on what your business is, depending on what the action is you want to do here, there is a few things. It could be that with this list, because we're qualifying the data, they might not necessarily be ready for contact, or it might be that you want to push them to your sales team to make contact with because they've met that threshold of our tipping point. It could be that we send them on a nurture sequence. So we start nurturing them with regular content. We know they're engaging with our website. We know they're opening our emails. So what else can we do to them? We don't need to talk about the brand so much because we know that they're engaging with the brand already. We can talk to them in a different fashion. Can we be more personalized in that nurture sequence? And I know we've got a webinar planned in the forthcoming weeks where we can look specifically at a nurture sequence, which can cover off the lead score at the end. But just to show you as an example, here is an example nurture sequence. So if we use that lead score list that we have created where we're collecting contacts, so if I just open this component, so we can automatically send these contacts onto a nurture sequence because we specified that in the journey. And this is just a very rough example, but we can then give a 3-day delay, send them an email, and then wait another 5 days, and then ask the question, are they a customer or have they performed that action that we're looking for? And we can build that out in the decision component within the journey to check on that before we keep sending that communication. Because the last thing we want to do is to be sending communications to somebody that's actually done that action or purchased or requested a demo or registered for something. We need to make sure that along that journey, we're checking on that criteria. So the nurture sequence can be quite powerful alongside the lead score. What else you could do with that lead score list is you could also maybe push them to a landing page specifically. And with the landing page, as in with the Force24 platform, with the microsite, you can really personalize that. And with the Genius blocks within that, we can really make sure that that microsite is personal. It could be, we know they've been on a particular page on the website, that we want to push them certain imagery. We want to push them certain content because we've built up that lead score, we've built up that behavior and that activity to make sure that that landing page they're going to is super personal to them. So hopefully that covers off what we can and can't do with the nurture sequence, with the lead scoring and how all that works. Obviously with the lead scoring, you just need to bear in mind that as you know, with your business, it might be different criteria, exclusions, inclusions that you might want to add into that. And at any point, if you're unsure of what that might be or how you might go about that, then please do use the chat function within the platform, and the team will be able to assist you in building that criteria out. But essentially, it's all in the data. It's all in the activity that we're holding against the contact. It can essentially be done. Or you might just want to do a simple lead score, as I've done there, where we're collecting that information and we're pushing to the sales team. So hopefully that's covered off how we use the lead score within the platform. But hopefully it shows you that you can gain maximum results with actually very little effort, and let the platform do the automation for you. You don't want to be going into the platform searching for a contact and activity. You can go straight to that list that we've created and go, okay, this is my hot prospects. Also, perhaps, as much as I've done one generic lead score there, potentially we might want to do various lead scores. So we might do a cool, a warm, and a hot, for example. So we might take everybody with a lead score of 20 and between 10 and 20. We might want to put them into a certain list and slowly warm them up. It could be that 20 to 30, we call them the warm contacts, and we send them slightly different communications. And then we might have the 50 plus, for example, where we know they're hot prospects and they actually just go straight to the sales team. We don't need to do anything to them contacts. So I hope that's given you a good insight into the lead score. And again, if you do have any questions while you're building out any lead score journeys, please do use the chat function. The team will be able to assist you. So I'll hand back over to Lee now, who's going to probably cover off the question and answers and go from there.
Yeah, we've had some good questions actually, Emma. So if we go through them, we've got one from Paulina. Do you need cookies on your website for lead scoring and high value web page scoring? So the answer is yes. So we can only track people that have given us permission to do so. So if the cookie tracking is in your website, that's how we actually track somebody, and that's how we build up that lead score. And the ways of actually tracking a cookie is, if you've sent an email to the database and they clicked, as soon as they click, that cookie's there dropped, we're tracking them from then on. Same with a form. So if you've got a form on your website, so in our example, we've got a book a demo form. As soon as someone books a demo, we'll give them an instant lead score, and then we will track them as well. So we'll be able to see if somebody's gone on our case study page, for example, and then from then we can actually see what websites they've actually visited. And what we do from then is actually push that into Pipedrive. And that gives our sales team a really good inkling into what the prospect has been looking at. So they might have gone through certain aspects of the website, they might have taken a look at our integrations, and very quickly our sales team then, they're loaded with questions. They're like, right, I can see you booked a demo, brilliant. You've looked at this case study, I can see you've looked at the Dynamics integration, I can tell you more about that as an example. We've had, this one's from Anonymous. So this one is, what's the difference between a high value URL and a high value web page? So the goal URL. So the way it's differentiated is, there's two reasons for it. When we have the high value URLs, what we're classing as that really is, let's say you've got case studies, so powerful content, so your blog, any product information, anything that's outside of the homepage, anything that's quite generic, more pages that you think, right, because they've hit this page, I know they're interested in me as a business. So for us, like I say, it's the case study, it's the blogs. The goal URL, that's the ultimate action. So again, in our example, we want people to book a demo. And as soon as someone books a demo, that lead score needs to be boom, high. That straight escalation into the sales team, because yes, we can carry on lead scoring them, we can carry on noting that score and whatever they visit on the web page. But because they booked a demo, we know instantly they're interested. So off to the Pipedrive it goes. Our sales team then pick that up and they can take the rest from there. We've got another one here. Is there a way to send alerts to internal contacts and someone from an email that gets a high lead score? So there is. So there's two ways of doing this really. Again, we actually have it within our integration, and that instantly creates someone in Pipedrive when someone has reached a lead score. This can happen in many CRMs. It can happen in Salesforce, and we can create an activity on the back of it. It can update leads in Dynamics. So it's probably something that's going to be bespoke to you, but we can definitely have that conversation and help it out. There's also a tool that we make use of called Zapier. Now, Zapier is fantastic because it integrates with thousands of applications out there, us being one of them. And what Zapier allows us to do is trigger email notifications. It can update a spreadsheet. You know, if you don't even have a CRM, perhaps you're lacking that technology, what you can do is set up a Zap. When someone reaches a lead score, that can create a new row in a spreadsheet to say, Emma has reached a lead score of 50, and any extra details you want to put in there. And you can do the same with an email. That email can then be triggered to the sales manager, perhaps, who then can escalate the lead from there. Let's see what we've got next. We've got one from Sam. Can you track lead score into our own company website, or is it only microsite data? So the great news about the microsite builder is that because it's in our infrastructure and you're building the site in the platform, that tracking's already there. So great, you don't have to worry about that. For your own website, the answer is absolutely yes, as long as you've got that tracking script applied. So typically in the onboarding process, we will have supplied you with a tracking script document, and it's just a small piece of script that goes in the footer of your website, and then that triggers the cookie. If you don't have that, again, please do reach out and we can help you get that applied very, very quickly. Next question we've got from the RedScan team. So they've had instances where they've seen multiple clicks on the same email, and are asking if they can reduce that. For us, for me specifically as well, I don't want to do that. And the reason being is these clicks are genuine. You know, I might have clicked on an email at 8 o'clock in the morning. If I've gone back at 3 o'clock, and perhaps I've gone back a couple of days later, I am engaged. I've saved your email. Think about all the emails in your inbox. How many times do you actually go back to it? Probably very little. You open it, you move on. If you go back to an email, that is somebody that's very engaged. So I'd always recommend keeping that lead score in there. And also there is an element of qualifying that lead yourself as well. So we've put them through, but perhaps you want to take a look at the detail on the activity. Emma, could you actually show that, by the way, the activity page? Because I think it's worth showing. You know, if someone's clicked 3 or 4 times and viewed the web page, it's that way of qualifying it, and we give that power to our sales team. You know, we're here as marketers to push those leads directly to the sales team. The sales team then take a look at it and they're like, right, do I see this lead as a hot prospect? If they don't, then fair enough, they can pick that up later. We can also take a look at the score. But I think it's worth keeping in there from a personal point of view. So we'll take a look at Emma, for instance, here, just to quickly show you that activity. And Emma will probably be very engaged as an employee of Force24. There we go, she's got a lead score. She's opened 199 emails. And if we scroll down to Emma's activity, we'll see, right, she's opened that email 5 times. So that was the engine. So we have a weekly newsletter, which again is quite cool if you do send out newsletters internally, because you can track actually who isn't opening them. So we can see Emma's engaged with that. We can see what emails Emma's looked at. We can see that she's opened some, she's clicked them 3 times. And I think it's worth bearing that in mind when it comes to the qualification. And then what's really handy as well is the website activity. And this for me is extremely valuable. So what's the date? 27th of April. Emma's gone direct. So that arrow means she's gone direct to a blog and she's building up that lead score. So that's how I would personally do that and qualify the lead yourself. You know, we're there to push it across. The sales team then look at it and deem whether or not it's worthy of a call.
And we can see there we've got that I've got pages and pages of web activity there to look at. And what we can also do is look at me as a contact. So if you wanted to obviously look at me as a contact and look, have I been on a certain web page? We can also do that through contact search without having to scroll through pages and pages of web activity. We can go, okay, who's been on the blog page in the last 7 days, and email address is Force24, or it could be myself as an individual contact. So you can really specify that fine detail within the contact search.
Exactly. Got a good question from Laura Dean here. So she says, we can see we're having excellent organizations looking at our website, but then they're just not completing the info. Is there anything we can do to push them so that we can start to interact with them? Yeah, that's the tricky one. It's actually giving them a reason to part with their information. And it can be tricky, you know, people know if they book a demo with us, and it's the same with anyone, any marketer knows, if you leave your information, the chances are someone's going to contact you, and you need a really good reason to leave it. So when someone books a demo, you know, it's one that they know they're going to get a call from. When they actually want to download a case study, it's something that it's a valuable piece of content for them. So it's about what guides can we put out there, what gated content we're going to put out there. And one of the cool things that we're going to release within the next month or so is our pop-up builder. And I think that will actually help quite a lot here, Laura, because what you'll be able to stipulate on your website is when a pop-up should trigger. So we can say to anonymous visitors, such as these organizations, we can start to trigger pop-ups. And we can be like, you can see we visited, perhaps leave your information. We do something similar with Intercom, and you might have seen that when you go to our website. Intercom pops up a message. We're going to have that functionality within the platform. So as soon as that's released, we'll be in touch, let everyone know that Pop-Up Builder has been released, and we'll also conduct a webinar on it to take everyone in through it in greater detail. I hope that helps. See what other questions we've got. We've got quite a few, so I won't be able to cover them all, but we will, like I say, reach out to people that we haven't gone through. Got one from Chloe, which I think is worth talking about, which is how customizable is the 30 days? The reason it's 30 days is purely because we, as a digital company, we want to see what they've been engaging with. So if you change the days and someone lead scores forever over 100, when are you ever going to go back and think, right, when have they gone cold and then back to being hot? And I know everyone's sales process is different. The reason it's at 30 days is because we want people to reach a lead score again at a further date. And that's the reason Emma was showing you the journey builder of when to remove them. That's what I would use in terms of your sales journey. So we typically might say 30 days. So we're going to say you are a hot prospect for 30 days. If you have decreased, we're going to take you out of the lead score list. And the reason for that is we want to escalate it again. You might have a long sales process, and we do as well. Everyone is, subscription based. You might have HubSpot, you might be in a 12-month contract. You're not going to be ready to sign up with Force24 dead on when you're looking at us if you're in a current contract. So you might look at us in month 1 of HubSpot, let's say, and then go away, your lead score's gone down, and you come back to us. We want to be able to push that lead back in because we want to be able to speak to you again. And that's the reason. So I would make use of journeys to pull people in and out of those lead escalation processes. And so we've got one more anonymous. Is there a way to push lead scoring to Pipedrive as part of a contact person? You can update a field. So I personally do it as a deal. And the reason I do it as a deal is because I can create a notes are where we put everything within Pipedrive, from sales conversations to customer conversations. But you can update fields as well against a person within Pipedrive. So yes, if you want to look at this again, do reach out on chat and we can look at implementing it for you. And then one last question from Sam, which is, can I access this webinar recording for future reference? And absolutely yes. So I've recorded this, hopefully. What I'll do is we'll save this to the cloud. We'll distribute on an email so everyone can view it. And we'll also put it on our help center. So the help center, again, is a great way to access many, many different articles. It's just the help button in the bottom left corner of our platform. We'll put all of the webinars on there going forward. And like I said, we'll send that out for you. And again, just to reiterate what I said at the beginning, please do go away, have a look at this and implement it and come back to us with any suggestions or any success stories, because we do really want to hear about them. And then any other questions you've got, remember, you've got the chat icon in the bottom right. Feel free to harass our sales support team. They are there to help you. Ask them as many questions as you want. And in terms of the consultancy, you've also got that aspect there. So if you do want that direct one-on-one conversation with them, please do reach out, or they can reach out. Just let us know and we're there to help. But yeah, I don't think there's anything else to cover today, Emma.
No, I think that's it. Just to also let you know, we are in the process as well of adding some how-to, very short and snappy videos on how to do certain things within the platform, such as data upload. We've got a lead scoring one, so we're going to be putting them in the help section of the platform. So keep an eye out on that if there's anything you want to refresh your memory with.
Fantastic. Thank you. And like I say, we'll be here again in 2 weeks. What's the next one? And I know George is going to host it. And what's it going to be on?
Yeah, I think it could be deliverability next one. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so it'll be Charlie.
It could be, yeah, Charlie.
Brilliant. All right. Well, we'll send out further information so you can register for the next webinar. We'll be doing it same time in 2 weeks, and then we'll be doing it every 2 weeks. So yeah, we'll hopefully see you all next time. Again, reach out and speak to you all soon. Thanks everyone for joining.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.